Hey people, it's me again. So, anyways, um, I think Mudahar had talked about this sort of thing, but I don't know if Moist Critical did, but maybe a couple of other people had talked about this. When it comes to like age verification laws here in America, it was already like being underway in Missouri. It might have been Michigan was another one, but there might have been a couple of other states, but it was like probably like Arizona and Texas, North Carolina or South Carolina or Louisiana and all that. But it was all like the whole um, the think of the children argument, but it's also a result of like lazy parents who are too clueless on actually parent their kids to keep you know the kids from accessing adult material there, and it's just one of those little things again. But the biggest problem with all of that there, it isn't really going that well in the UK when they already had done something like that similar there, because especially now that like the kids had found their way around the whole age verification laws, by doing you know by using like chat gpt to make them look older or something like that, to get a, get around the biometrics and all this other stuff, and you know and in a way, it was something similar that was going on in China, where kids are only allowed to be online for maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 hours per day, or week or whatever it was. But yet they managed to use their parents' ID in order to be online longer than the time allotted, and you know, and it was just one of those other little things that happen here. But it's just one of those little things again where kids are gonna find ways to get around um, all those age verification laws and stuff like that. Because I'm certain, like, if I asked anybody who is probably around my age or a little bit younger, where they had found ways to get past like an internet block that um, that their parents installed back in the day, preventing them from accessing sites and stuff like that. You know, so it was just like what I said earlier about it. When it came to you know those type of parents, that are just too lazy to actually parent their kids. They just want to offload that responsibility to the government. You know, and it's always something more like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's like the right would be that way, but maybe there are certain people on the left that are that way. But it's also kind of comes a little bit hypocritical, especially when it was like, going against that whole mantra about keeping government out of people's personal lives was like a right wing mantra of things, but yet that only just suits their own narrative when it comes to like certain things they don't like, you know. But the biggest problem with um, the edge verification laws, or even further down, like trying to ban VPNs in that sense, because there could be a good constitutional argument against all of that. any of these type of constitutional lawyers could successfully sue that state, and then basically, you know, argue that it violates First Amendment rights and blah blah blah. Because like especially what happened years ago when there was the Child Online Protection Act. When it came to like how it was written too broadly, and then I remember it was the ACLU had sued Attorney General Janet Reno back then when she was still around, and I think it went to the Supreme Court or something like that. I can't even remember. But then the Supreme Court had struck down one section of the law, which made it, which was kind of a bit of an overreach, anyways. And so this could also be like one of those little things again where if they overdo it on that, there's there could be a Supreme Court argument there that could struck down another section of the Child Online Protection Act, you know, or have the whole Child Online Protection Act be scrapped entirely, and then make the whole Congress write up a better law that's more suitable, that isn't going to really necessarily violate free speech, but it also keeps kids safe, you know. But it's just one of the things that I have to kind of mention here, you know. So, anyways, I guess that's probably it. So, talk to you guys later.